It is another edition of the news in Africa and the world. Is Friday, the 29th of May 2020. We begin in Mali, where armed men on motorcycles killed 27 civilians in central Mali in three attacks on ethnic Dogon farming villages in less than 24 hours, local officials said. They added the three attacks were carried out by people claiming to be defending Fulani against rival Dogon. Attacks have been in recent central town as recriminations between herding and farming communities over jihadist violence compound long-standing grievances. The army has been criticized by right groups and residents for failing to protect civilians in central Mali. Over to Ivory Coast, the International Criminal Court ruled out on Thursday that former Ivorian President Laurent Gbagbo and his deputy Charles Blé Goudé can leave Belgium under certain conditions pending their trial on appeal for crimes against humanity. Gbagbo, the first head of state to stand trial in The Hague, and his deputy were cleared in early 2019 of crimes against humanity, 8 years after his arrest and transfer to the court. An ICC spokesperson said he could travel, provided the country he was going is prepared to receive him. The Hague-based court said they could travel out of the countries they were currently residing, but will have to surrender all identity documents and report weekly to the law enforcement authorities of the receiving state. In reaction to the new independent probe that was ordered by the board of the African Development Bank, the AFDB, into his activities, AFDB's incumbent president, Akinwumi Adesina, said he is not guilty of any wrongdoing, equally vowing to remain in office. Whistleblowers had accused him of corruption and favoritism, which he strongly criticized what he termed unprecedented attempts to taint his reputation with accusations which have shaken the institution. Adesina's response comes after the U.S. Treasury Department wrote a letter urging the AFDB to carry out an independent investigation into the alleged ethics breaches by the president. An internal inquiry by the bank's ethics committee cleared Adesina of all charges, prompting whistleblowers to demand an independent inquiry after their complaint did not appear to gain any momentum. Over to France, Prime Minister Edouard Philippe has announced that the country will scrap the 100-kilometer travel limit and that parks, beaches, lakes and museums will be able to reopen from June 2, but clubs will remain closed until at least June 21. The date marks the beginning of phase 2 in the progressive lifting of the coronavirus lockdown. On Thursday, the Prime Minister remained cautiously optimistic that the country will manage to dodge a second surge in the number of COVID-19 cases. Like phase 1, phase 2 will last for roughly 3 weeks from June 2nd to June 21st. It will begin to open its bars and restaurants for the first time since they were closed on March 14th. While other sectors are still to reopen, groups are still limited to a maximum of 10 people in public spaces. In the United States, protests erupted across the country on Thursday night as anger over the death of George Floyd, an unarmed black man, intensified, with some demonstrators gaining access to a police precinct in Minnesota and setting sections of building on fire. It was the second consecutive night of violent protest following Floyd's death, which was seen in a video that showed him gasping for breath while an officer knelt on his neck for almost 8 minutes. A video of the incident shows Floyd pleading with officers, saying he can't breathe before going motionless. Floyd's family, community leaders and residents are calling for arrest to be made, while the U.S. State Attorney for Minnesota is promising investigations will be made. China's parliament, the National People's Congress, has approved the proposal to impose a new national security law for Hong Kong and paves the way for the legislation to be finalized and implemented in the city. Defying international pressure, the National People's Congress voted 2,878 to 1 in favor of the decision to empower its standing committee to draft the legislation with 6 abstentions. Protesters in Hong Kong have rallied against the bill all week, with police arresting 300 people amid new anti-China unrest. Protesters were opposing the anthem bill, which would criminalize insulting it, and the security bill passed, which they fear will strip the territory of its autonomy. And US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order aimed at removing some of the legal protections given to social media platforms. He said the firms had unchecked power to censure and edit the views of users. He had regularly accused platforms such as Twitter and Facebook of withholding conservative voices. The executive order calls for a new regulation under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act to make it that social media companies that engage in censoring or any political conduct will not be able to keep their liability shield. Thanks for watching. Do stay tuned for programs continue on DBS television. Until we meet again, do take care and stay safe.